Snap out of it. Stop thinking your vote doesn't matter and doesn't affect our community. This November, truth is, we need everyone to vote. Fill out your ballot early and return it before November 7th. Then text your family and friends that their vote matters and remind them to get up, get out, and be a voter. A message from the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County.
Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County Forum for candidates for City of Lynnwood Council, positions 4, 5, and 7. I'm Karen Madsen, a member of the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County. This forum is being live streamed to our YouTube channel. To those in the virtual space, thanks for joining us this evening. A recording of the forum will be made available on the same YouTube channel for later viewing. Let me start by providing some background on the responsibilities of a city council member. Council members manage basic public services, sewer, water, fire, police, roads, parks, etc. They establish and enforce local laws. They control how land can be used and provide direction to the mayor or the city manager. They manage relationships with other governments, nonprofits, and businesses for the benefit of city residents. Candidates for Lynnwood City Council are Nick Coelho for position 4, Julieta Altamirano Crosby, position 5, Robert Lutweiler, position 5, David Partial, position 7, and Derek Hanisch, position 7. Jim Smith, candidate for position 4, is not joining us today. It's the policy of the League to be nonpartisan, therefore we neither endorse nor oppose candidates or parties. The rules for participation in this forum were sent ahead of time to all candidates. I'll pose the questions and will clearly state the amount of time allowed for each answer. We're using a countdown timer visible to all candidates, and time limits on questions will be strictly enforced. I'll change the starting order for each question, alternating candidates in the starting position to ensure a fair sequence. The order, determined randomly for the first question, will be Mr. Partial, followed by Mr. Lutweiler, then Mr. Hanisch, then Ms. Altamirano Crosby, and then Mr. Coelho. Let's begin. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to this first question. Mr. Partial, you'll lead off on this first one, and you have 2 minutes. What are the major issues you feel need to be addressed by this office? Please explain why you've chosen to focus on these issues.
Let me squeeze in a quick thank you to the League for putting on this forum before I get started. And let me answer that question by saying, you asked how I feel, what are the issues I feel? And I think one of the things that's been most important to me is being more interested in how the people of Lynnwood feel. And this isn't a big presidential office or congressional office where we get a lot of polling information. So my only access to information about how the voters of Lynnwood actually feel is to go out there and talk to them. And I've been very proactive in doing that. I visited over 2,000 doors in Lynnwood so far. I've talked to many voters, and I try to keep it as open-ended as possible because I'm a first-time candidate, my opponent's a first-time candidate, and at every door I simply ask, is there anything on your mind in Lynnwood as long as I'm here today? I'm a candidate for Lynnwood City Council position 7. And overwhelmingly, the people of Lynnwood are interested in public safety. I would say 9 out of 10 doors, people talk to me about public safety in Lynnwood. They think that's their number one issue. Number two thing I hear about is transportation in Lynnwood, whether that includes, whether it be roads, whether it be traffic, whether it be bicycling, being a pedestrian in Lynnwood, some kind of transportation comes up. And I think the third thing that I hear most often about from the voters of Lynnwood is that They are concerned about growth in Lynnwood, whether that's affordable housing, how we're going to deal with the expected growth over the next 20 years, what the character of Lynnwood is going to be like, and how we're going to preserve the character of Lynnwood. Because we are a very unique city here in the South Snohomish County region, and I think people that live here are very proud to be residents of Lynnwood. So they want to make sure that we keep the unique character that we have here in our city. So those are my top three that I'm hearing about and that I'm focused on for the people of Lynnwood.
Thank you, Mr. Partial. Mr. Lutweiler, you're up next, 2 minutes. Mr. Lutweiler, my screen isn't showing that you're muted, but I'm not hearing your voice. Unfortunately, sir, I'm not hearing you still. We got a little bit of a sound. Can you do what you did again? Still not hearing you. Might I suggest that you unplug your earphones and try speaking? I'm still not hearing you, sir. Mr. Lutweiler, let me go on to the other two candidates and see if you can troubleshoot a bit.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I just heard you. Oh, just for
We
that
did all
moment.
that testing and then
There
it
we
stopped.
go.
So
There we go.
sorry about that.
Not a problem. 2 minutes. Take it away.
So I'll try to be quick. There
No,
are
you take your full 2 minutes, sir.
there's a lot of issues we could talk about. There's three that I would focus on. Number one is public health and safety. Number two is transportation. And number three is housing. They're all important individually, but they also are very connected to one another. So in terms of public health and safety, we absolutely need well-funded law enforcement and first responders. We need a well-funded and effective government service for addressing homelessness, drug addiction, the other underlying factors that are contributing to a lot of the crime that we're seeing in Lynnwood and throughout the state. Number two, transportation. We have a transportation system that, to be honest, is very destructive to the environment. It's unsafe for a lot of people, and it's unable to scale to meet our long-term transportation needs, and it's financially unsustainable. The city of Lynnwood has underfunded road maintenance for millions of dollars and for decades. And that's an example of this financial unsustainability that I'm talking about. My priority is making our streets safer and healthier and more accessible for people of all ages, all abilities. Someone who doesn't drive a car or can't drive a car should not be cut off from everything that the most of us take for granted. The way we do that is by embracing multimodal transportation. So walking, biking, transit, cars, any mixture of those. There's really no transportation solution that we can talk about without talking about housing. I hope we'll talk about that more later. Housing, there's so many benefits.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lutweiler.
Thank you.
Mr. Hanisch, you're up next. 2 minutes.
Sure, you can hear me?
I sure can.
Excellent. So, yeah, there's three issues I want to focus on. First of all, there's the toxic political culture in Lynnwood, right? Like, we punch above our weight in Lynnwood when it comes to political controversy, right? We're like the Rockettes, right? It's like to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right. Well, personally, I'm very resistant to political hysteria. I feel like I'm a very level-headed person, and that's what we need more in the city council. Aside from that, I'm very much looking toward the future. And the other issue that I want to bring up is the Sound Transit Lynnwood Link light rail that's opening, which is going to be a great thing. I'm going to enjoy taking it to Seattle, but it's also going to pose some challenges for us, right? In our city, our motto is all are welcome in Lynnwood, right? And I believe that because I was welcomed in Lynnwood. right? But the way that it works with Sound Transit is they do not collect fares, and Lynnwood is going to be the northern end of the light rail until at least 2040. And so there's going to be all kinds of new populations brought to the city that we're going to have to welcome. And in particular, it'll be homeless populations. It'll be difficult populations, and we will have to find ways to work with them. I was homeless for 5 years. Some guy asked me for a crystal meth yesterday in a park. Okay, like I spend time with these people, right? And I was super nice to the guy, but I don't do crystal meth. So solutions related to that. That's the second issue. Is the incoming influx of homeless people. Finally, there's the tax base in Lynnwood, which is based on retail, based on Alderwood commerce, right? Because increasingly people don't go to brick and mortar stores, and within our lifetimes, we will not be able to raise the same kind of tax revenue from brick and mortar
Thank you,
stores.
Mr. Hanish. Appreciate your response. Ms. Altamirano Crosby, you're up next. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Karen. First of all, I really appreciate it. The timing and the opening and the hosting this for us. I really appreciate it to the League Women of Voters. My three topics and focus in is public safety. What is the big issue? And that's sustainable growth and access to health and mental health. I started being a city council in 2020 and 2019. When I campaigned, I knocked 5,000 doors. And the majority of the doors that I knock, and I still doing this time, is public safety. Last year, as a city council, we received a lot of emails regarding public safety, and safety is very complex. So I am a leader. They are proactive, and I take actions. And so I established the Let's Talk About Safety forums in different neighborhoods. So we go with the community act, and different neighborhoods have different issues with safety. For example, we established that in May in Trinity Lutheran Church, and the people they attend those forums, they are different with the people that attend the other forum in Middledale Community Church regarding graffiti and regarding gangs activities. Last week, we host one forum about the youth voices and family, and we received a lot of comments regarding families very worried and concerned about the gun activities and their kids that receive threats around in the school. So we try to work and focus on that. And also the sustainable growth. We are focused on affordable housing and roads and everything that we can offer public transit and the Washington State Growth Management. We have to be aligned with those two as well. And for mental health, well, I think that my time is gone. Thank you.
My usual trick of pressing the spacebar isn't working. Mr. Coelho, you can bring this one home. You have 2 minutes.
Just first of all, apologies, audience. I had a scheduling conflict, so I'm actually out in public right now. This is a real brick wall, not a fake wall. This is normal clothing, so I'm kind of schlepping it up. If somebody yells at me to move, I may have to move, and we'll deal with it as it happens. But my top issues here are the same ones that I talk about on the campaign trail. First, that we need to address the public safety concerns of Lynnwood's residents. I want to be clear that we need to go beyond just pushing to fully staff our law enforcement and criminal justice system. That's just basic competency and should be expected of this job. But we need to go further, and I would argue addressing our tattered social infrastructure should be number one. Cities around the country are beginning to realize that connected communities are safer communities, and I would like to take the lessons of other towns and apply them here. As a really simple example of what I'm talking about, many of the residents in our neighborhoods have been shocked by the recent gun violence in some of our parks. I've spoken with a lot of these folks, and many families don't even feel comfortable letting their kids play in them or travel home from them anymore. Something as simple as following up a couple weeks after these traumatic events with door hanging flyers in the neighborhood surrounding these parks that has information on what happened, who the perpetrators were, if they were caught, and our law enforcement's response, I think would go a long way towards making our neighbors and our neighborhoods feel safer and more in control of their city. Beyond that, I'd like to ensure that our council maintains a forward-leaning posture and a long-term focus on public policy so that we aren't bogging down in short-term distractions at the expense of our residents' long-term quality of life. Finally, I want to collaborate with the council and mayor to capitalize on the many opportunities we have in our town to increase entrepreneurship and small business generation here in our city. As an entrepreneur who founded his dream business here 10 years ago, I feel like I can uniquely help on this subject. Taken all together, my campaign is really just about building community and helping Lynnwood thrive. I hope you'll join me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lutweiler, you'll lead off on this second question. In the interest of fairness, I have to tell you, we are using a timer with which I'm not totally familiar, and I cut you off 3 seconds early at the end of your last comment. So you, sir, have 93 seconds to respond to this one. What qualifications and experience make you a good choice to address the issues you've brought up in your earlier question? 93 seconds, sir.
So I've served 5 years in the U.S. Army. I was an infantry platoon leader. I led a unit of 40 soldiers during a combat deployment to Afghanistan. I have decades of experience working, leading teams, leading complex projects. Right now in my professional work, I manage programs across Canada, Latin America, and the Asia Pacific region. I've earned my Master of Business Administration from the University of Washington Foster School of Business. So I think I have a good professional background that has prepared me to serve on City Council. As a veteran, I strongly believe in the ideals of this country. And when our government fails so many of our citizens, which is what I think is happening today, it feels like such a disservice to what all of us signed up for when we joined the military. And beyond that, I think my perspective and my experience as a millennial is really what drives my conviction and my commitment to do something about the housing crisis, about climate change, and being fiscally responsible for, on behalf of everyone, but particularly our younger generations who, are really going to suffer the most from the fiscal irresponsibility and the government inaction that we're seeing today.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hanish, your thoughts?
Hi there. Yes, so I have a particular experience related to what I brought up, which is lived experience. I spent over 5 years of my 20s homeless, living on the streets, and I never really got into any bad habits, but I spent quite a lot of time with young people sitting around doing drugs. I knew all the drug dealers. I knew people that, went to Rite Aid and stole liquor and so forth. And I have a lot of experience with these people. To some degree, I've kept up that experience today, like I mentioned in the park. But with We Heart Seattle in Seattle, I'm a high impact volunteer. So I'm in homeless camps all the time, or as often as I have time. And so I'm very familiar with the lifestyle of someone who's troubled and the questions of like, what do they need to succeed and so forth. Aside from the partisan aspect of the city of Lynnwood, right? Like, I'm not just here running in a nonpartisan race, pretending to be independent, pretending to be moderate, right? Like, I actually am independent and moderate. I have views on the left and the right. That's what you'll find out about me if you were to ask me about it. And I don't just use catchphrases like, oh, I support public safety, I support transportation. Like, I talk about specific, tangible issues, right? Because we all support those things, but when I'm asked what my big issues are.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hanish. I appreciate it. Ms. Altamirano Crosby, you're up next.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. Well, during the past 4 years, when I have served on the Lynnwood City Council, I have been particularly mindful of my position as a woman of color who represents all the people of Lynnwood, not just my community. And my goal has always been to provide inspiration to others and assure them that they also can serve as a community leaders. And that is raising the level of civic awareness, identity and engagement with the community is important work that needs to be done. I have a PhD in social communication science, a master in education of educational leadership, a master of communication science, a certificate in race, equity, and leadership in schools from Harvard University. I was appointed by the Governor Inslee to Washington State Commission on Hispanic Affairs and Humanity Washington's Board of Trustees. I was former chair for Snohomish Hill District. I am part of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Belonging Cabinet of Association of Washington Cities. And I was the liaison as a city council for Snohomish County Tomorrow, Alliance for Housing Affordability. And currently I serve in the board, the food bank, the community leadership board for the National Resource Center for Refugees, Immigrants, and Migrants, and part of the steering committee of the Lynnwood Neighborhood Center of Volunteers of America.
Thank you very much. Mr. Coelho, your thoughts?
Yeah, I really like this question. I'm going to answer it kind of broadly here. Not only have I been immersed for a decade in the business climate in our town, I've also had years of experience both volunteering around our community at places like the Lynnwood Food Bank and representing our residents on civic boards and commissions. I spent over half a decade on Lynnwood's Parks and Recreations Advisory Board, as well as representing Lynnwood, Edmonds, and Woodway on the Snohomish County Parks and Recreations Advisory Board. So I know how our departments manage staffing issues, maintenance burdens, capital projects, and the illicit behavior in our public spaces. I've also served on the South Lynnwood Neighborhood Co-Design Committee and the Lynnwood Parks Love Team. So I've been immersed in how to improve existing neighborhoods with land reforms and policy that improves connectivity. I've also served on Sound Transit's community advisory group, so I'm plugged into the regional conversation about how mass transit and the light rail will impact our community. To circle back to the beginning, as a business owner and community builder in my professional life, I am grounded in reality, pragmatism, and planning, which keeps me focused on practical and cost-effective public policy. I think I'm a perfect fit for this position and to promote it in the roles I've talked about. Thanks.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Mr. Coelho. Mr. Partial.
Well, I have really deep ties to the Lynnwood community. I have deep roots here. I was born and raised in Lynnwood, and I actually came back to Lynnwood, bought a home here because I was teaching in the Edmonds School District. My parents were teachers in the Edmonds School District. I think being a teacher and coach here in the community has given me a lot of experience with the families of Lynnwood, and it's really good to know the families of Lynnwood. It also gives you exposure to a really diverse group of families from different countries, speaking different languages. So I've had a lot of connection with the community that way. I'm also a volunteer in the community. I've done a commission in Lynnwood. I am a volunteer with Friends of the Lynnwood Library, so I'm very active in the community that way as well. The other thing I would say is I'm out there doing the homework that is necessary for this position. I attend city council meetings every single week so that I know what the issues are in Lynnwood, and I know what's happening in Lynnwood, and I'm ready to do this job on day one. I'm also engaging with stakeholders in the community. We can talk about public safety, but I'm the candidate that's endorsed by our police officers here in Lynnwood. I'm the candidate that's endorsed by our firefighters here in Lynnwood. So they trust me to do this job, and meeting with those groups is really important. So I know that the things that they think we can do better in Lynnwood, and I can put some of those ideas into action where they're practical for the people of Lynnwood. So I would say I've really done my homework. I'm ready to start this job on day one.
Thank you, Mr. Partial. Appreciate it. Mr. Hanish, you'll lead off on this next question. And timer, please make note that the candidates will have 60 seconds for this next question and for all each of the remaining questions. Mr. Hanish, this next one goes to you first. What measures, if any, would you support to keep housing options affordable in Lynnwood?
Okay. So my vision with housing relates to what I was talking about with retail and e-commerce. And so in particular, like a lot of our real estate is big box stores, retail stores. That's also a lot of our tax base, and that's not sustainable. And so in general, this is sort of a long view here, but I do see those spaces being converted to housing and quite a lot more units being added to housing. Supply and demand, more supply lowers the cost of housing. And, as it is, we have some relatively affordable housing, being built, but I do foresee, when retail, is phased out because of e-commerce.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hanish. Ms. Altamirano Crosby, your thoughts on that question?
Could you hear me?
I certainly can.
Thank you. Well, I haven't been advocate for rezoning. Industrial zoning can be zoned for industrial or multi-residential, and that is a win financially for property owners to benefit the adjacent neighborhoods and create more housing units. Another thing is like work to reduce building and developing fees, which are passed on the buyers too. I voted also and allocate money for rental assistance and rehousing programs with organizations such as Volunteers of America. I endorsed by Master Builders and Camino Board of Realtors. And I have learned a lot about the Growth Management Act and enforcement. We have a crucial time. The city of Lynnwood, it must complete the next period of date to the Growth Management Act by June 30, 2024.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your response. Mr. Coelho, your thoughts on affordable housing?
I've got a few. But really, I think it's unhelpful just to talk about affordable housing as one thing. Affordable housing is really multifaceted, and I like to talk about it as affordable housing and housing affordability. Housing affordability is about ensuring that market forces in the housing sector can work to meet the many different housing needs of our community. While a single consultant may want to prioritize living near transit and a coffee shop, a new family may prioritize a house with room to grow, and a retiree may want to downsize and prioritize a home without stairs, but near the neighborhood they lived most of their lives. Comprehensively fixing our broken zoning and land use laws can help make that a reality while enhancing the character of our existing neighborhoods. Now, affordable housing is about ensuring that the essential housing in a community exists. And I want to emphasize the word essential there, because all of our workers and families deserve the dignity of having a stable home. Some examples of what we can do here is to tackle this is, prioritizing permitting for developers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coelho, for your thoughts. Mr. Parshall.
Thank you. I'm going to try to keep this to one issue because housing is really complex. Affordable housing is really complex. Here's the baseline that we're dealing with in Lynnwood. We're expected to grow by 12,000 people in Lynnwood over the next 20 years. That means just to keep up with normal growth, we need to add 500 units of housing in Lynnwood every single year. So for those of you at home, like if you know the new apartment building that went in next to the Costco, that's about 350 units. So if we're going to keep up with the growth of housing, we need to build 2 of those buildings every year just to keep up in Lynnwood with the basics. So we need to build where it makes sense. We need high density where it makes sense. We need to keep single family homes where it makes sense. But increasing the supply of housing is probably the most effective thing we can do as a city council to try and keep those prices low. It's going to be difficult to keep up, but we have to do the best we can.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lutweiler, you have the final word on this topic.
I think it's important to call out that a lot of the policies that are being talked about tonight and kind of the status quo approach that our city councils have kept in place have artificially restricted the housing supply, and they've driven up housing prices, in some cases estimated to have added up to $200,000 to the home prices here in the Seattle area. I have long been an advocate for what's called missing middle housing, which is a return to allow duplexes, triplexes, cottage homes, a variety of homes that fit the needs of a diverse community. In addition to that, I support a variety of things we can do that would streamline the application process and reduce some of those costs that get passed on to purchasers. And then I also support looking at a rent board agency or a rental registry for Lynnwood to help with stable and secure rental housing for residents.
Thank you for that. Ms. Altamirano Cosby, you'll lead off in your response to this next question. Homelessness is a growing issue for many in our communities. As a council member, what solutions would you propose?
Well, this is a national crisis, and I am in favor of more detox and treatment centers. I am an advocate for our justice system. I visit the homeless camps and the hygiene center to get for firsthand and look at difficult situation. And we host a roundtable. Let's talk about safety, homelessness, drug addiction, and mental health in the city hall. And I foster partnerships with faith-based organizations, nonprofits, and community groups to provide outreach and also support and work closely with neighboring municipalities and regional agencies to coordinate effort to address homelessness regional. I work also and collaborate with Representative Lauren Davis. And as a former chair of Snohomish Health District, I understand the importance of having available and accessible health services, including mental health services here in Lynnwood. And also—
Thank you very much. Mr. Coelho, you're up next.
Let's recognize this is a huge issue and that there is no easy solution. Even the tough on crime types who want to sell voters on some macho silver bullet answer are going to run into a giant brick wall called the U.S. Supreme Court. Go look it up. But that doesn't mean we should stand idly by and allow illicit behavior and explicit occupation of our public spaces, which, despite having trees in them, are just as much intentional city infrastructure as the roads we drive on. One thing I want to emphasize about this is that I have a lot of endorsements. I'm endorsed by literally almost every single representative that Lynnwood voters have sent to the county council and the state legislature. That means our residents will have a council member with a working relationship. And I have a pretty good idea then of what isn't working across the region to address these complex problems. I'm eager to see what lessons we learn from the county's foray, for instance, and their housing first policy that is really set to take off in 2024. Thanks.
You're welcome, Mr. Coelho. Mr. Parshall?
I too am endorsed by Lynnwood's state legislators and county representatives. And I think that's a valuable thing to have in a future city council member, because some of the biggest causes behind homelessness are drug addiction and mental health problems. And Lynnwood can't do it alone. We need help from state, we need help from county, we need regional partnerships. So my relationships with those legislators and county council members will be valuable going forward. So I do think we approach homelessness from two directions. We try to deal with the root causes as much as we can. People that want help with drug addiction, we want to make sure that help is available for them. People that have mental health problems, we want to make sure that treatment is available for them if they're willing to seek it. And I also want to approach it from the other end, people that are not chronically unhoused, that maybe had a bad month, couldn't pay their rent for some reason, are out on the streets. We want to get them back in their jobs, back in their homes, because everything starts with a roof over your head.
Thank you, Mr. Parshall. Mr. Lutweiler.
So again, I think it's important to acknowledge that the housing policies of many of our elected officials and city councils are actively contributing to driving people into homelessness because they can no longer afford rent. They can no longer afford a place to live. Those may be kind of more of the invisible homeless, where they're living on couches, living in motels. You may not see them as visibly, and they really just need the government to step in and take action to address this affordability crisis and help them get back into stable housing. And that's all they need. We definitely have a population who need much more support. They need mental health support, behavioral health. They need hands-on support, and that's where we're short, tens of thousands of beds. And the question is, for city councils, which city council members are willing to bring those facilities and those beds into their communities and have those options, and who will resist that.
You, sir. Mr. Hanish, your thoughts?
Sure. So I have lived experience with this issue, and so I don't just use buzzwords like, oh, the causes are drug addiction and mental health problems, right? Like, I want to talk about specific solutions and so forth. So, first of all, San Diego has a program that I want to implement in Lynnwood. In San Diego, they pay homeless people $2 per bag of trash, picking up trash, right? And with the influx of homeless people coming from Sound Transit, like, we're either going to live in a trash city or we're going to convince homeless people to pick up trash, right? I don't know if that sounds shocking, but it's just the facts, right? And aside from that, like, what is the real cause of being a troubled person? It's having poor social influences. It's having friends that are negative influences on you. And I think the city of Lynnwood, with the internet, with technology, can take the lead in connecting troubled people with better peer influences through social media, through a Facebook group, maybe next door, and so forth. But in order to resolve this, we're going to need a volunteer.
Appreciate your response. Mr. Coelho, you have the opportunity to respond first to our next question. All local jurisdictions are required to update their comprehensive plans in 2024. Are there changes or additions to the current plan that you would suggest? Please explain.
Absolutely. A lot of what I would recommend would be what I talked about a year or two ago while serving on the South Lynnwood Neighborhood Co-Design Committee. On this 2-year civic board, residents like myself and other stakeholders around South Lynnwood learned about the complexities of zoning and land use and urban design, and how past council's decisions impacted the very nature of our part of town. For instance, Lynnwood's only industrial area was deliberately sequestered to my neighborhood to keep it away from the others. And because of that, my part of town has for a long time had incredibly few amenities, services, and small businesses that would otherwise cater towards us and improve our quality of life. So I'd start by undoing the damage and assumptions of the past, but then go a step further and expand our neighborhood commercial zoning to many more parts of the city, allowing enterprising retirees and DIY types to create special places within walking distance of our residential community. Think of how fun it would be to have a weekend cafe just a 5-minute walk from your home, or a cider bar in a converted garage where you could meet with neighbors while walking your dog.
Thank you, Mr. Coelho. Appreciate it. Mr. Partial.
I don't know if this was the League of Women Voters' intention to make us read the 200-page Lynnwood Comprehensive Plan, but I will say it worked. I read the entire 200 pages of the Lynnwood Comprehensive Plan, and 10 years I learned is a long time in the planning world. Things have changed a lot in 10 years. So a couple areas that I thought were underserved by that comprehensive plan. One of them is very obvious. Light rail was not served very well by our comprehensive plan from 10 years ago. It's mentioned, but at that point in time, there were a lot of things we didn't know that we know now. We know some of the locations of the stations. We're still picking a location around Alderwood Mall for a station and then going north from there. So light rail is going to be much bigger part of our next comprehensive plan. And I also think there's some room for improvement in environmental areas in our comprehensive plan. I'd like to see a much more comprehensive plan when it comes to the environment. So those are just two of the areas I would hit.
Thank you. Mr. Lutweiler.
Well, I think it's unfortunate the city council hasn't put a climate action plan into place so that we have that strategy to help inform our thinking as we go through this comprehensive planning. When I look at the comprehensive plan, what I would emphasize is multimodal transportation. Again, residents need a choice, an authentic choice about how they get around the city. That is the proven strategy for traffic congestion, making our streets safer, and promoting a healthier city. And I also am a strong advocate for walkable mixed-use communities. And to make that possible, you need that variety of transportation options. We need to streamline our policies and promote more diversity and flexibility for housing and small businesses. As we said, these are long periods of time and we can't anticipate where growth and where the direction will go. And we should allow flexibility so that that can happen organically. And then I would emphasize promoting green space. Thank you.
Sir. Appreciate your thoughts. Mr. Hanish.
Thank you. So I think that in the future for Lynnwood, there's going to have to be an emphasis on services for homeless people. I mentioned some of my ideas, but also I support more mainstream ideas as well. Also, too, we're going to have to grapple with the fact of less retail space. As far as I know, I don't think that there's really any consideration for that. So we'll mostly make up for it with new residents. You know, a bunch of people are moving here. But as far as the city is concerned, I do like the idea of walking around the city, but it's 7.5 square miles, right? And I suppose that maybe public transportation would reach the whole thing, but like it's difficult to imagine most people walking from like James Village to the city center, right? Like if you want a walkable city, okay, live near the city center, granted, so forth and so on. But I still envision a future with cars and driving around in Lynnwood, and I'll wrap it up there.
Thank you. Ms. Altamirano Crosby?
Well, I think that we have to stay focused on the sustainable growth, zoning for affordable housing, and climate action plan, and promote green energy. Those are the three things four things that we have to be mindful and focus in. And as David Parshall mentioned, the light really is coming, and it's something that is not in the comprehensive plan. It is in place right now. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Parshall, we've come full circle, so you'll lead off on this next question. What actions, if any, would you propose to respond to our changing climate?
Oh my goodness, so many. One of my favorite that I talk to people about at doors with, and they're like, why are you so interested in this, is our waste treatment plant in Lynnwood. Because currently we are burning all of our waste as it goes to our waste treatment plant in Lynnwood, which is obviously not good. We're putting carbon into the air and smoke into the air and polluting. So we're hoping to have a capital improvement in Lynnwood where we have a new waste treatment plant where they will treat the waste in Lynnwood. And I feel right now horrible for talking about waste so much in my answer, but they're going to treat that waste to the point where it can be used as fertilizer for agriculture. So it's a double benefit for the environment where we're helping agriculture and crops and farming, and we're also putting less pollutants into the atmosphere because we'll no longer be burning as much of our waste. I'd love to see more solar in Lynnwood, more green spaces, less asphalt. I could go on and on.
Thank you, Mr. Parshall, for not going on and on. Makes time for Mr. Lutweiler. You're next.
Thanks. So I think we need a climate action plan. That's a top priority for me. And if we had one, it would tell us to do many of the things that I have already talked about and what I'm running on. So our approach to housing can allow us to have a much more environmentally friendly pattern of growth and development that allows for more sustainable options for transportation. It allows us to avoid growth out into our green spaces, allows us to convert areas that are currently acres of surface parking lot, allow that to develop into housing and business options. Transportation is 30 to 40% of greenhouse gas emissions. And so when you're talking about these issues, that's why I bring up transportation so much. There's just no way to tackle this without dealing with transportation. And a key part of transportation is having a housing policy that works complementary to meet those climate goals that we need to combat climate change.
Thank you. Mr. Hanisch, your thoughts?
Sure. So I think that this is maybe an issue that's bigger than Lynnwood, right? Like we going forward are going to rely on technology to save us from ourselves, right? Like there's no question that the way we live right now is unsustainable, but there's also a lot of hope that we're going to change the way we live through the development of technology. In particular, carbon capture. We'll be removing so much carbon from the atmosphere that we'll remove too much carbon, and we'll be having a debate in 20, 30 years like, oh, we need to put more carbon in the atmosphere, right? So our entire perspective on this issue is going to change. I think solar power is a great thing, especially in the summer, because we have so much daylight in the summer. It gets, we all live here. You know what I mean? And then Washington State has kind of the lowest electricity prices in the country. Last I checked, because hydroelectric power. So yeah, like I think electric cars are great. They have basically unlimited torque. Like they're just like superior cars. I think electric cars are great. I don't know about Lynnwood encouraging people to drive electric cars though.
Thank you, Mr. Hanish. Your thoughts, Ms. Altamirano Crosby?
Thank you. This is a really interesting topic because coming from BIPOC communities, I mean, we need to focus more in education and awareness and raise public awareness about climate change for grassroots and initiatives and engage our communities. One of the biggest things is urban forestry is becoming a much bigger trend across the country because of the severity of urban heat islands. And Lynnwood has a big heat island. When you develop an environment and there are no trees, so all these streets, shopping centers, parking lots, Highway 99, so as they have more asphalt, concrete, and no trees. So we have an urban island. So as a city, we need to introduce more trees and make sure the forests and wetlands are preserved and maintained. And also, last but not least, the parks and recreations, they are doing an amazing job. They were recognized for this.
Thank you so much for your thoughts. Mr. Coelho.
I think I'm going to pick up where Julieta left off there. I think we've heard a lot of great answers so far, and I don't think many of us are going to disagree on this, but I want to talk about what people at home can do soon. And this is really just about volunteerism. I was at the at the fair on 44th just last month, volunteering at the Lynnwood Parks Love booth. And you have no idea how many residents came up to us and just asked if there was anything they could do to get involved in park stewardship and repairing our tree canopy throughout our city. I want to repeat that there are people that will literally combat invasive species that are endangering the health of our current tree canopy around our town for free. The amount of maintenance we have burdened our parks crews with has gone up by percentage-wise almost triple digits in the past decade without a commensurate increase in staffing. And while they do a great job with what they have, we could have a much healthier tree canopy in our city if we only had a robust park stewardship volunteer program in Lynnwood. The city of Lynnwood has just received a big grant to get an urban forester who may just kick off this kind of program. I'm really excited.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. On to our next to the last question. Mr. Lutweiler, you'll lead off on this one. And the question is this: what actions, if any, should the city take with regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion policies and practices? Please explain.
So DEI is something that feeds into, I think, every policy that I talk about. Housing, for example, we know that Lynnwood's homeownership rates are disproportionately low amongst the BIPOC communities. That's why I'm so concerned about this approach that so many of the city council pushes for, that there can be no change in our single family neighborhoods. We're perpetuating a low homeownership rate amongst those communities in Lynnwood. When we talk about transportation, 25% of Washington residents don't drive. When you look at who rides public transportation, the populations who are really served by that are definitely include underprivileged, underrepresented communities. They rely on it for their day-to-day and their getting about. When we have more transit choices, it improves income inequality and it brings down rent overspending. So it's a critical part.
Appreciate your thoughts. Mr. Hanish, how about you?
Well, so I think that all are welcome in Lynnwood, and I think that it's important that we maintain that value. And I think we have a good base for that. The main problem is that it's been sort of a political, hot potato in the city, and I think that's inappropriate. Like when we talk about DEI, it's a very partisanly charged issue. Feelings are on the left and on the right. And I really think we should, really learn to get along in those regards. And it could really be a big positive step forward, and just in terms of, the emotional unity of the city. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Ms. Altamirano Crosby.
Thank you. Well, as a female, minority, and person of color, I experience in my life, and I live every single day, about diversity, equity, and inclusion. As a woman of color, I have to work 5 times more than every other individuals. And I believe the here in Lynnwood, I mean, we try to do our best job to try to learn from each other. I very close and develop relationship and trust with diverse cultures they are here in our city. And maybe they feel so related with me because I experience in my own shoes these barriers. Everything in plan and theory looks so wonderful, but I invite every single one of to visit and approach to people with empathy and try to learn from them. Because when we assume things, we don't learn like that.
Thank you. Mr. Coelho.
I love that Derek mentioned all are welcome. And I think some of what I would say is just we should live up to our promise. We have signs all around the city saying all are welcome, and it's time to prove it. And we are well past due for a Pride event in our city. We were actually set to hold our very first Pride in the Park 3 years ago, but the pandemic put the kibosh on that, and we've kind of stalled out on it ever since. Thankfully, there are members of the community stepping up, and I'd love to see our DEI commission and coordinator reach out and empower them. I will acknowledge, I think Derek even mentioned this, that there have been a lot of controversial takes on DEI issues in the LGBTQ plus community lately. But I really honestly believe a lot of this just stems from a lack of connectivity in our city and amongst our residents. A Pride event in Lynnwood can help act as a bridge for folks to meet this diverse community in person and share in the struggles and triumphs that many have had with achieving self-actualization. Thanks.
And finally, Mr. Parshall.
Yeah, our DEI commission is really important in Lynnwood. Lynnwood is one of the most diverse cities in Snohomish County, if not the most diverse city in Snohomish County. And I think Julieta is correct that the relationships are really important. And I've been working hard to form those relationships and hear from different communities. I am endorsed by at least 2 of the last 3 DEI commissioners. John Waters and Nash Lushgary both support my campaign. But I'm also endorsed by a wide variety of political figures from different communities. I'm endorsed by Hispanic leaders in Snohomish County. I'm endorsed by Asian leaders in Snohomish County. I'm endorsed by Black leaders in Snohomish County, and even LGBTQ leaders from around the county. So I've been doing the work of forming those relationships and learning about different communities so that, unfortunately, Julieta is the only one of us here who's not a white male, but I think I've done a good job.
Appreciate it. And we're to our last question, just that quick. And Mr. Hanisch, you'll lead off on this. Please tell us something about your life experience that might surprise or intrigue voters.
Well, okay. I've already mentioned that I was homeless. Here's kind of a quirky thing here. I've been a musician my entire life, and I've mentioned this recently in an interview, but I don't think it's been published yet. I really had a miserable childhood, and it's very sad. But I began playing piano when I was 7, and then when I got into high school, I really got into playing piano. But I got into playing piano for myself, right? Like to be alone. You want to play music to be with other people, right? Music should be a social experience, and so I actually got really into playing piano on my own. Wasn't that great? I taught thousands and thousands of piano lessons, and it wasn't until I was 27 years old that I became a decent musician. So today I'm a decent musician, and today I actually teach homeless people how to play guitar. Anyway, that's about my minute. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Ms. Altamirano Crosby?
Well, I was born and raised in a rural area in Mexico. So one sport that was very common and popular, that was basketball. So I play professional and national basketball in Mexico. So I started when I was in elementary school, and then I was in high school, and then in my college, and represent my state. So I really enjoy to do that, but I don't do it anymore because I have an accident and I stopped. But my dream is to, in the future, to coach Latino gears here in Lynnwood. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Coelho.
Sun's going down. I've got dramatic lighting, so let's finish this. I think when you look at leadership and you look at leaders, something you should really consider is what they do in a crisis. What do they do when the chips land on the table and they have to make some tough decisions? I've had quite a few experiences over the past few years where I've had to make those decisions, both as a business owner. When COVID struck, we ended up making some of the first public health safety protocols in my entire industry in the US. Some people forget that Everett was the epicenter of the COVID pandemic. And I got my staff on unemployment before anybody else did. And I even hand delivered cash to keep them going in the meantime. I know what it takes to be responsible. And once we started to reopen, we supported and gave back to the community, donating thousands of dollars to various charities and nonprofits in the area to help keep them going. At the Parks Board, I even had to make a tough decision. We needed to either keep the parks open or close them with the COVID protocols. And our Parks Department decided to keep them open. I'm so glad we did. As the chair of the Parks Board, I supported that wholeheartedly. Thank you.
And Mr. Partial.
Julieta, let's start a Lynnwood versus Edmonds basketball classic for charity. My fun fact about me is I also love basketball. I have been a coach in the area, coaching high school basketball for over 20 years. I've coached at Lynnwood High School, Mount Lake Terrace High School, Shorewood High School, and Bothell High School. So we're gonna whoop Edmonds in a game of basketball. I would also say I'm the most boring person in this room. I live 1 minute away from the hospital where I was born. I live 1 minute away from the school where my parents met and fall in love. I live about 2 minutes away from my parents' first apartment when they first lived in Lynnwood in the late 60s, early 70s. So I hold the record for farthest, least distance traveled from where you started in life to where you are in life now, because I purchased a small condo here in Lynnwood, and for some reason it was just in this confluence of all my things in my life.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lutweiler, you have the last word of the evening.
So just a brief experience is, I'm originally from Texas, but I always wanted to go scuba diving and to learn how to scuba dive. And it's, as you'd imagine, there's not a lot of good options in a lot of Texas. And so during the pandemic, I was able to finally take scuba diving lessons. It was a lot of fun to do that while wearing masks, trying to go through that process. And what I was going to mention is, number one, anyone who has the ability to go scuba diving, it was just a great experience. But when you get out there, it helps you see the Puget Sound in such a totally different light. It really shows how much life and the treasure that's out there and what we need to be doing to preserve that resource. It's just a beautiful experience. Really lets you look at the world from an angle that I just had never looked at.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The League thanks all these candidates for joining us and for running for office. We're deeply appreciative. Communities are in good shape when they have good candidates for office. A recording of this forum and others will be available on the League of Women Voters of Snohomish County website and YouTube channel. You can find links at lwvsnoho.org. We encourage you to explore additional information about these and all the candidates. The Snohomish County voter pamphlet will be mailed starting October 18th. Vote411.org, sponsored by the League, is another great source of information. Ballots will be mailed starting October 19th. Election day is November 7th. Please be a voter. Thank you to our League candidate forum team. Special thanks to Dave Moon and the Sultan School students at turkpride.tv who made this live stream possible. And of course, thank you all for joining us. This concludes this candidate forum.